Westworld Season 2, Episode 6, Phase Space. The new episode of Westworld Season 2, as I just said. And I am here with the Nerd Soup panel today. Only three of us today. Big three, like Boston in '08. Sorry, Boston, for losing against LeBron, but, you know, he's the GOAT. And how you doing today, guys? Aaron and Marissa.
Great. You had to throw that little jab in?
Well, you know, I got to represent.
I love it.
I'm doing good. I don't watch basketball, so...
I texted her last night. I was like, yeah, LeBron just made it to his 8th straight finals. She's like, will he make it to his 9th, though? Probably not. Unless he goes to New Orleans. But we're not here to talk basketball. That's the Oddcast. Check them out on SoundCloud. Little plug for my good friends over there. We're here to talk Westworld, the 6th episode. And this is an episode that I thought it was a very solid episode. I don't know if it's my favorite of the season. I seem to be just saying that every week. But the reveal at the end, I guess it's a good place to start at the end, because that was really the big twist of this episode. Dr. Ford, the man with the sweetest Welsh accent of all time, Hannibal Lecter.
Ripping the piano.
Oh, killing it. And as soon as he walked in, I was like, oh, Ford's playing the piano. His little dog walks by, and it's like...
That was a nice little nod, the old Greyhound that he was talking about how his father got for the family.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you guys think about that? What Ford has been doing this whole season, it looks like he's inside the cradle.
I really like that it wasn't just because, of course, all the theories that Ford was creating a new host for himself. He had perfected the whole human host thing. I like that we didn't get that, and instead he's like become basically every host. Like he said at the season 1 finale, you become music. He's become the hosts. Perfect callback, I think.
Yeah, that line goes from being metaphorical to now literal. So you become music. Now he's every note.
Yeah, that's great. When he was walking through, I knew when you saw the dog and you see him look over to the piano and you see his reflection, I'm like, holy shit, let's go. Even though I was kind of expecting it, like when I finally saw my man's face, I'm like, all right, let's fucking go. I'm geared up for the rest of the season.
So what do you guys think about that? Because I know everybody since the end of season 1 has been talking about, like you said, that Ford was going to come back, that he made a host body. Maybe the host was killed and he's still alive, or he died and put his consciousness inside of a host. But it's now it's a digital form of immortality, where he's just inside the cradle. And they said that the cradle has been operating all of the known systems in Westworld, and that when the quality assurance team tries to take over the system, that the system is fighting back.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer to what we thought Westworld was. It's so interesting because I'm not like a big tech guy, so it's hard for me to really, like, very basic, so I understand it like in layman's terms. It's definitely interesting to see how he interacts with Bernard, because I still think that he was trying to make Bernard Arnold, so it's interesting if he tries to push that agenda forward, or what he's trying to do. Is he just trying to take over the larger world at this point? Like, it's hard to know what his motivation is, because if his motivation was this new narrative, what's next? It's going pretty well so far for Dolores, but I don't know about the greater sense of the host or what Westworld's supposed to become.
Right, and it's his motivations become a question mark, because that's one of the reasons that I wanted him to stay dead. Let these new characters be the lead. I don't know, what do you think Ford adds to the season moving forward?
I'm very confused about what he's doing. Like, I really enjoyed the fact that he's part of the cradle and he's in the host cloud, I guess.
Yeah.
Why put himself in the cloud? What is he planning on doing? Like Aaron said, where does he go forward from here? Is he just trying to, like, screw Delos because he hates them? If that's ultimately his goal, then, like, okay then.
Just really petty.
He's the most petty person alive.
Well, I can imagine
I can respect that.
Well, people have been speculating too that maybe he's in control of Dolores, making the decisions for Dolores.
I feel like I wouldn't like that, though, because the whole last season was dedicated to her gaining her consciousness, and if it's just been Ford and taking control of her this whole time, then what was the point?
Well, I always say that because Ford gave her that wired narrative, that it's impossible for her truly to be her own person, because it's basically Ford has his fingerprints all over that whole personality. So it could just be her acting it out through what Ford implanted her with. Like, an example of this is when you see Teddy. Would you say that's Teddy, or is that Dolores' version of Teddy, that what she wants him to be? You can kind of compare that to what Ford's doing to Dolores. He basically made her who she is right now.
Right, yeah. It was a combination of Ford and Arnold giving her that role. But yeah, it's like you said, I wouldn't like that. I can understand that maybe his motivations are he just injects his consciousness inside of these beings that cannot die. so he becomes immortal and he also becomes a new species. It's like a ridiculous megalomaniac thing.
Also, part of me wonders if like his new goal has something to do with William in the game he's playing with William, and if William's a host, which is a whole other can
Well, let's
of
go to
worms,
that. William, you think William's a host?
I'm more convinced after this episode than I was in episodes earlier this season, particularly the conversation between him and his daughter. And she's like, I loved the elephants. It was mom who was scared of the elephants. And he's just like he's that gif of that guy just blinking. He's like, oh.
He seemed to be thrown off by that.
I thought that was more just showing how detached William was from his actual family, that he doesn't even know them at all.
I talked about on my Solo review, not Solo the movie, but the review I did for the episode, that William may have been trying to test his daughter by asking her about the elephants, and depending on her answer, he would know whether if she was a host or not, but it could go both ways.
Which is also, I think, how it, I guess, casts doubt on the whole is William a host thing, because like he could be a host, or it could just be he's so alienated from his daughter that like how are we supposed to know? And he thinks that she's a host this whole time, which I think is like why he abandons her somewhat.
That was funny when she came up and he thought it was Ford control. Ford made a host of his daughter. His mind is all over the place. He's not putting anything past Ford at this point.
No, yeah, and I think it's because she hasn't been in the park in a long time, and he knows why would she even be here. I guess her return to the park was when she went to the Raj. But I'm still interested in what is her motivation. Is it just bringing her dad home? Because I thought that reconciliation was a really good scene. It had me close to getting choked up.
It's the most emotion I think we've seen from the Man in Black.
Yeah.
And William, I guess, this whole time. That actor, Ed Harris specifically, it's the most we've seen him do, I guess, emotionally this season.
Yeah, definitely. Because you see him getting choked up with his daughter saying that, in a way, she doesn't forgive him, but she admits that she shouldn't have said that her mother's death was on him.
I think her motivation for just not wanting another one of her parents to die, like on such bad terms like that, is enough for her to go to the park and try to find him. Though in the beginning, it doesn't seem like she was trying to do that, unless the whole, like she was just going to visit.
She was like, oh, I'll get this nice little vacation first, then I'll go save Dad.
Yeah.
Well, I think at first, she didn't know what was happening, and once she saw shit was going down, and knowing her father the way she does, she's like, all right, I gotta go protect him, because that maniac's wanted this the whole time, and he's probably gonna get himself killed doing this shit. So, because
then it's the Notebook again.
Yeah, she has a notebook. I feel like she was trying to do something else, and then once she saw these hosts going rogue, that's when her mind might have shifted towards her father.
Yeah, because there has to be more to her motivations than bringing her father out of the park. But the first scene of the episode, it's a continuation of the first scene of season 2, where Dolores and presumably Arnold were having the conversation where Arnold says he fears what Dolores might become if she ever does become conscious. But it looks like this scene confirmed that this is a baseline test, that this is Ford and Dolores inserting the consciousness of Arnold inside of Bernard and trying to what William was trying to do with James Delos, to make Arnold immortal. But it fails.
Yeah, that's what I predicted before when we first learned about this whole baseline test, and that Bernard was a way to kind of create Arnold, but doing it different from the way William did it, because obviously that didn't work. So I felt like Ford was going to slowly build Bernard as his own person and then slowly incorporate Arnold's memories as kind of like
So this first scene it's him trying to do it William's way, because in this scene he is convinced that he is Arnold until he slips up.
Yeah. So it's a whole long process. I'm trying to still figure out where this ends up in this whole timeline.
Right, because you would have to think Ford says in season 1 that Bernard's been loyal for many years, but the first scene that we see where Bernard comes to life, Ford is already an older man. So it's not directly after Arnold's suicide. And then there's the question of, how did you get hold of Arnold's consciousness if he's been dead for decades? Maybe he has Arnold on ice somewhere in the back.
Yeah, because at first when I think I mentioned like in an earlier episode that I thought maybe Bernard would have been able to access these memories of her and Arnold through the mesh network, and then when I saw the preview for this episode, when she says no, that's not how it went, I thought maybe that could be something like Bernard just trying to access those memories and he's kind of slipping up a little. But now that we knew about the whole the baseline test and everything, and she says that line to Bernard, that it kind of confirms that Ford was trying to test this out on Bernard before maybe testing it out on himself.
I feel like the key difference in what we're assuming is Bernard's baseline and the baseline we've seen with Delos is that Delos, we see him like deteriorating as he's speaking, but we don't really see that with Bernard, or we haven't gotten enough of the scene to tell if that's what happens. So I already feel like Ford is way more successful with his human host attempts than William and the Delos Corporation ever were. It might even be because he's not trying to like create a human host. He was trying to figure out a way to put himself into the Cradle network.
Right, that's what I thought, that this scene was Ford's attempts as just using Bernard and Dolores as guinea pigs in his project, which ultimately led to him recreating his own consciousness. And instead of putting it inside a synthetic body, he puts it inside of the Cradle, so you don't have to adjust to reality.
The focus might just be, like, can he recreate a human consciousness in the form of a host brain, like, at all? The issue probably with Delos's issues with reality and his own human host body is that his brain, like, his consciousness was the issue, so maybe that's what Ford decided to focus on, and he's like, forget the actual body, like, that's whatever.
Yeah, it's more important about the consciousness being recreated. But the interesting line when Bernard breaks when he fails the baseline test, and Dolores says that they've done this countless times, so even though it looks like it's succeeding more than the Delos baseline tests, they still are failing. And the line that he breaks with is when he begins contemplating, is it the right thing to do to kill himself and kill Dolores? And I thought that was an interesting insight into Arnold, that the real Arnold never thought, is this the right thing to do? It's, what should I do? Maybe if Arnold did question to himself, is this the right thing to do? Maybe he doesn't commit suicide.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my brain. It's really hard to do because then you're thinking, like, where does this take place? Like, is this Dolores running a baseline test? Like, maybe.
Well, I think she's just the familiar face.
Yeah,
she's
and
the
it
William.
also reminds me later, I think it was a couple episodes ago when Bernard and Dolores meet in the Confederados camp, and she's like, "You're so beautiful, and you don't know what you are," something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder if maybe she was referencing this and not necessarily the fact that she knew Bernard was a host, because like she has all those memories, she can access them.
I hate this show, but I love it.
Think back too, because she's talks to Bernard. I feel like she's doing like a very. She doesn't have that Southern accent either, so I don't know. I guess that's just her baseline, right? The way she talks is Wyatt.
Well, he tells her to drop the accent in their conversations.
Okay, yeah, that's right. The whole show's in the Cradle.
We'll get back to the Cradle in a little bit. Let's talk about Maeve and the way that they wrapped up the Shogun World storyline. To me, the samurai fight between Tanaka and Musashi was fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I thought Teddy must have loved this. This is what Teddy wanted to see, and it was a great scene. Maeve giving the hosts, instead of using her magic to manipulate Tanaka, giving them the choice to fight or to die.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because that gets brought up later in the episode as well. So I think she realized it's not her place to control everyone's actions. If, he challenged him. He's like, all right, you always talk about how you want to fight. Let's do this. He didn't say it like that, but they have better scripts over there in Westworld. I think that's part of finding yourself, is your right to choose your path and the consequences that come with your choices.
Yeah, there was a nice little Easter egg, too, to the way that samurai would end their lives, where they're given the choice to stab themselves in the stomach. So if they willingly commit suicide, the other samurai will chop off their head, show them mercy. The way that fight was choreographed, I just thought, this is...
It was in daylight, which I remember last week you were complaining everything was in the dark.
You know what would have been funny if you saw like the sun in the background just go down really quick? It's like, cut the lights, it's a fight scene. But then the ending where they visit, not the ending, but the closure to this arc with Maeve and Akane where they travel to Snow Lake. Westworld's big, right?
Yeah.
How the hell did they build that?
I think that specific scene, I was like, how did they create this? Like, are they actually seeing this right now?
It's just a giant green screen. And walk up to it, it tips over.
Well, I'm like, why the hell? Like, at first, because you mentioned the suicide with the samurai, and it looks like the way they shot the earlier scene when Akane is tending to Sakura, her dead body, it kind of looks like, before you realize she digs into her and takes her heart out, it looks like she was actually committing suicide as well. So that was a nice little surprise. And then she takes her heart out. I'm like, what the hell is she doing?
Yeah, and that ending scene where Maeve tries to get them to travel with them to stay with the group, and they say no, they want to stay in Snow Lake, to stay with the spirit of Sakura. That was another scene that kind of tugged at my heartstrings.
I'm hoping it comes back.
I don't think it will.
Like, yeah.
I wish it would come back, but I don't think it's going to.
That's just like, I want it to come back because I really enjoyed those characters, and I really enjoyed like Akane and Masashi. I really enjoyed Akane and Masashi and the whole doppelganger aspect of how Sizemore like recreated the story and everything and just copied it.
And I'm a sucker for scenes when two guys look at each other and they give them the respectful head nod, Hector and Musashi.
So you're not so bad after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked what we saw of Shogun World, and I want to see more. But I guess I'm also fine if we don't. But it's just I really liked it, and also those actors were so great. Like you can't just be
They're
using
so
them for
good.
2 episodes.
Yeah, I know
or
what you're saying.
an episode and a half. Like come on.
Maybe the show should have just been Shogun World to begin with.
Part of me was thinking, I was like, they should have just set the whole season in Shogun World.
Or season 1, and it's like they go to Westworld in season 2 for an episode.
I'm a big Western guy, so.
Yeah, I know you are. So you were happy to get rid of Shogun World?
No, I like Shogun. I mean, it was a great change of pace, but, it's Westworld.
And then Maeve, when she reunites with her daughter, this is another scene. There are 3 scenes in this episode that could be considered heartbreaking, but this one more so than the others. When she reunites with her daughter, and this is something that we predicted, that either the daughter's dead, she's another host, or there's a new mom. And at first I was like, oh, there is no new mom. This is...
Part of me was like, has she just been sitting there waiting the whole time? Because it was so long. She was just on the stoop playing with the dolls.
And she did look the same age.
Yeah.
I give them credit for that. She did a good job of not aging.
Hell of an actor. She should get an Emmy for that then.
Yeah,
she was able to restrict her aging just for the role.
I can just imagine her sitting on that deck for like a year and a half. Just, don't age. Yeah, but what did you guys think about that reunion?
It's just like, though, but Maeve, like, what do you expect? We obviously saw there's only 3 options, and I'm sure she should have thought of those 3 options as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. She tries to act like, oh, because
I think it's something she got so wrapped into trying to find her that it's not something that
it seemed like for a split second the daughter like remembered her.
Right.
Like
yeah.
the way she was like looking
she
at
embraced
Maeve.
her.
Yeah. If she was just a stranger who came to talk to her and tell her how much her dolls loved each other, I'd be like, okay.
It's like pretty fucked up though. Like once the Ghost Nation comes, she's like, all right, new mom, you're good. I'm
gonna
take the
try
daughter.
to save the other mom.
That was messed up, man. And I think that's something that they're not going to brush over. The fact that Maeve just wanted to sacrifice this new woman. She saw it as an opportunity to reunite with her daughter.
I wonder if that'll push her to try to use the mesh network manipulation on her own daughter.
Yeah, you brought that up last episode, and I think so.
I also wonder, can Maeve be her first mom?
Probably, yeah. I'm thinking Maeve had to, because the park's only been open for 30 years. Maeve was at the brothel, I think they say, for 10 years. So maybe for 20 years, that's what they did. They would get up in the morning, do their laundry, and then get murdered by Ghost Nation in the nighttime.
William.
William, right, yeah.
Did she attempt
So maybe the daughter will have her own awakening where she'll remember Maeve.
I just wonder if like Maeve had another role before that, or maybe the daughter had a different role before that. Maybe Maeve didn't always have the same daughter. Like, this is just the daughter she remembers.
They always seem to keep their narrative until either they're joined by a host that already broke their loop or a human. So for the most part, they seem to still be in their loop. So maybe once you come into contact with Maeve or someone else, another host that has broke free of their loop, then that causes the other host to break through their loop and maybe start to gain a little consciousness. You see it with, especially Hector. At this point, he's pretty much, and even Teddy before Dolores went all, I don't know what the fuck she did to his brain. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but she fucked him up.
Well, before we talk to Dolores and Teddy, because I really enjoyed their scenes, especially the new Teddy. I love evil Teddy, man.
He's like bitter, too.
When he shot that first guy, when she wouldn't give Dolores the answers, he wouldn't give Dolores the answers that she wanted, and he just shoots him in the head. I was like, oh, fuck.
Even Dolores was a little shook when she saw that. She was like,
I saw tweets like...
Change it back.
I saw tweets like, I swear, if they make Dolores start realizing she made the wrong decision, I'm going to snap. Like, she literally wanted this.
Yeah, when she was like looking like regretful, I was like, you did this. Like, this is your fault. The transformation he did, it wasn't like very subtle, but it did a lot of work for changing like Teddy, like his facial expressions, even the way he's holding himself, the way he talks. I was amazed.
Yeah, when they killed that one programmer, when he gives him the gun and the one bullet, and he says, this is the only mercy I have left, and they unhook the train.
Well, actually, go back to May for a second. Ghost Nation again, man.
Yeah.
What's their deal?
This has been the theory that a lot of people have been speculating on, that Ghost Nation hosts that are basically fighting for the host revolution.
Well, what does he say to her? Like, we're on the same...
That our paths lead to the same...
Yeah.
Yeah, something to that extent.
Did she try to manipulate them, or...?
I think she knows that she can't. That's the other thing with Ghost Nation, is that Stubbs couldn't control them in season 1. Maeve can't control them now with voice commands.
But she couldn't do the voice command in the earlier episode, but...
Maybe she could do the mental.
Yeah, she didn't even try.
I also think just in that scene, she like kind of reverted back to like it's Ghost Nation coming and kill me and my daughter again, and I have to run away.
Ghost Nation is seeing who to join. It could just be Ford controlling them and realizing that Maeve is like, oh shit, Dolores is whack. Maeve is the real one.
I also saw people bring up that Ford may have been in the cradle in season 1. That the Ford that we saw get shot was just a host, and he was already in the cradle, like maybe in like episode 8 or 9. And to your point, maybe he was controlling Ghost Nation at that point. With Westworld, you would think that they have something planned for them, that this isn't just all for nothing, that they're just not Native American stereotypes trying to kill people.
That's always been my issue with Ghost Nation, even in the first season, because like you said, Westworld always handles things with like nuance. There's always like layers to characters. So I was like, Ghost Nation has to mean something. And by the end of the first season, they didn't. Like nothing they did, I felt like ultimately mattered besides them kidnapping Stubbs.
Right, but even in the scene with Stubbs was like, they're not killing the humans, they're only killing the hosts. So that remains the mystery that I haven't seen anybody really crack. It's really been grasping for straws with Ghost Nation.
I hope we get some kind of answer at the end of the season, or even like some kind of, I guess,
a hint.
Like some kind of clarity so we understand where they're going, and it's just not like, ooh, it's the Ghost Nation, they're supposed to be scary, don't think about them too much.
They're playing the long game.
They are playing the long game, man. Yeah, and Dolores and Teddy. I enjoy the new evil Teddy because I think James Marsden, his acting abilities are they're not wasted, but the old Teddy is a bit one note. He would repeat himself. He had a dark past, but now he's trying to redeem himself. Now he's just pure Terminator.
I keep seeing him as like Cyclops.
Me too, man. It's
Cyclops
season 1.
with
I couldn't
Jean Grey. I'm like,
yeah, but what did you guys think about the change in Teddy?
Well, interesting note too. When Teddy first walks into the brothel and Dolores is ripping the piano, much like Ford at the end of the episode.
Yeah, kind of signaling that she's the new piano player. And now the old piano player is like, no, I'm still here. But they're going to the Westworld Mesa, and it looks like this is going to tie into what happened with the cradle, because in the episode Akane no Mai, we get the information from Costa that a third of the hosts that escaped, their backups have been destroyed. And in the tablet, that's the cradle. That's the same room. And you could see some of the towers have been knocked over. It looks like there was a fire. And that's where Dolores and her crew are headed right now.
She also says the cradle's down. And it's a bloodbath in there.
All these plot lines seem to be converging where Dolores is heading to the Mesa. And we've talked about this before, that, the hosts that escaped.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, like, because they're digging around in there. I'm like, oh, they're going to stumble upon Bernard and Elsie. Then they look on the tablet and they get the map back online. And they're like, oh, there's a train coming. And it hits a train, and then you see Elsie hears the impact. What the hell is that? And so they're all close. So I don't know. It's just going to be fucking chaos because Bernard witnesses it, right? I can never tell if he witnesses it or the way they show it to us, it's him enacting on it, or because his fucking memories are all over the fucking place.
Yeah, and it looks like in the next episode, he's also going to be a part of it because he's holding a gun.
Because I know, it's... So, I don't know. I guess he's just like, all right, fuck it. Maybe he sees something in that cradle if Ford tells him something where he comes out more with a clear path. Like, he knows what's going on now where he's able to pick up a gun and choose a side.
As far as like Dolores and Teddy go, I wish we had seen like more of them. My main issue with the episode overall is that we saw a little bit of all the storylines, and I felt like it wasn't enough for any of them. I read a recap. I forget where. I think it was The Atlantic. And they basically said it felt like this episode was just trying to get people where they needed to be in order for the next phase of the plot to like kick off, and that's very much how I felt it went. Yeah,
maybe these storylines could have happened at different times in different episodes. What do you guys think about that theory that Bernard's basically been in the cradle for the entirety of season 2, and that they basically put him in there so that he can retrace his steps to see what happened in that 2-week gap where they went dark? It's a theory that I do enjoy. I think it gives us an answer as to why Bernard has been so messed up throughout season 2.
It's interesting because definitely in the 2 weeks later storyline, it's pretty obvious that they know Bernard is a host. And we even see, I think next episode we're actually going to see, because in the trailer, Hale stumbles upon the Bernard bodies. It's just, does that take place in the 2 weeks later storyline or in this current storyline that we're seeing in the past episode? I think she sees that now, and then that's why they're talking to Bernard in that 2 weeks later. I could see that maybe for the 2 week later storyline. I don't think that it's the whole season 2, everything we saw at Bernard, because there's just so much going on. And we really don't know how they interact with the other hosts and while they're in the cradle. Because it seems like when Bernard's walking through, none of the hosts are acknowledging him. He's kind of just witnessing what's going on around him rather than him actually being there. It's almost like a simulator, but he can't affect anything that happens that's going on in there. But he does open up the doors. He physically does that, so it's interesting. It could be funny too. I just thought of this maybe. It's almost just he's seeing what Ford is allowing him to see right now. Like it's not, and if that's the case where if he was in the cradle for the whole season 2, he's interacting with everyone, I guess you would have to write in like Charlotte Hale's character and create this whole narrative and trace it with Bernard as he's going through.
I definitely do think that some of the scenes in season 2, if not all of them, it's Bernard inside of the cradle. But then it's the loop of, is Bernard in the cradle? Is he reliving when he went inside the cradle? And then is he in the cradle in the cradle? You know what I'm saying?
I can't do that. But I mean,
I guess there's going to be a way that they're going to clear that up.
But he's interacting with Dolores on her path, and it doesn't seem to, like, I feel like it can't be in that timeline. Because we see him with other hosts that we've been watching. I think it would have to be the 2 weeks later, where they're going back into the cradle to get, maybe they manufactured that 2 weeks later storyline. That's not actually happening.
Right.
That's just something they created to get what Bernard knows out of him.
Yeah, the showrunners maybe just be playing around with the scenes with him and Elsie where it looks like it could be inside of a simulation, the way that Elsie's talking to him, but that's just genuinely what she's saying. But there's that scene even in The Riddle of the Sphinx where Bernard says to himself, "Oh, I'm not here with you now," and he walks away from Elsie, so that makes you think.
Yeah, ever since they threw that scene at us and the whole, we already know Westworld likes to work with multiple timelines. I'm like, what's happening? When is it happening?
But they do it in such a way where it's like, they're like, here's the timelines, and you still can't figure out what's going on.
This is what's happening.
Not.
Yeah, that's the scene that bugs me because they'll clear it up. But yeah, it's an interesting theory, and the introduction of the cradle. I'm very excited to see what Ford does moving forward. What did you guys think about the scenes with the new Irish security leader, Coughlin?
I don't appreciate everyone was treating Ashley in this episode.
I like Ashley.
They're giving them the business. Charlotte Hale's like shitting on him, and then this guy's shitting on him.
They're all making fun of his name, and
they're all telling him he's like a bad head of security. Yeah. But it's like, you didn't tell him about half the stuff he was supposed to be guarding. Yeah. He wasn't bad. You guys are bad.
There was nothing for him to secure when Ford's cooking up that master plan. There's no way he couldn't have, what was he going to do?
He's like the scapegoat in the outside world, like disgraced
he
security.
He is the goat. Yeah, yeah.
Disgraced security guard Ashley Stubbs responsible for hundreds of lives in Westworld.
He's the head coach that like the football team fires when the team underachieves. It's like, well, it's got to be coaching. It's got to be Stubbs. Should have did something about it, kid. Well, I'm thinking that Stubbs might end up taking the side of the hosts. And people theorized about this in season 1 that Stubbs and Elsie Hughes were going to be allies for Bernard. And that scene where they're pinning down Abernathy and Stubbs is disturbed by what they're doing.
I wonder because I'm pretty sure Peter Abernathy gets away after that somehow. Like they lose him, right?
Right. And
so I wonder, like someone has to let him go, right?
Yeah, it could be Stubbs.
Like does he?
And how did Stubbs escape Ghost Nation? Again.
Like
that was my whole thing in season 1. Like, how did he escape them in season 1? And then they show him with Grace, and now he escaped again, and they didn't show it. So there's no way they're gonna show us that, right?
Yeah, that was when they were nailing him down to the bed. I was like, holy shit! Like that's a host, and Ashley has always been one to not really see the host as people. But even that, maybe he learned something from the Ghost Nation.
It's like Avatar.
Yeah.
Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, maybe
I've become one of them.
I mean, that's the first time we've seen him show any sympathy towards a host, or maybe just the visual of getting fucking 10-inch bolts going through your body.
Yeah. An actual crucifixion.
Ooh.
Didn't I say Abernathy was Jesus in one episode?
No, you said Dolores was Jesus. Dolores is Jesus.
I feel like the whole biblical imagery is definitely like they're doing that.
Yeah.
Like on purpose. But I'm not sure exactly besides the obvious, like what they mean, what side we're supposed to be aligning to what
Well,
characters.
Peter Abernathy kind of feels like small potatoes now. Now it's Ford inside the cradle.
What's small potatoes?
It's like he used to be big potatoes. Now he's small potatoes.
I've never heard that before.
Well, I'm getting that into circulation.
Okay.
Small potatoes.
That's how we should review movies. All right, Han Solo, I'm going to give it big potatoes.
Yeah, 3 fries out of a basket.
It's probably more of just like a medium-sized potato, that movie, but you guys know what I'm getting at.
Because it's like a couple weeks ago, it was like, oh my God, immortality, how is this going to come into play? And then it's like, you know what? Fuck that. Here's the cradle. And Ford's everywhere. And now it's next episode. When you see the preview for next episode, every week with this show, I'm like, what the hell are they going to do? I've never watched a show like this.
There are 4 more episodes left. And this episode, like, they were very obviously setting up something big, but it also kind of felt like it should have been closer to the end of the season. I don't know if that was just me.
They keep dropping season finales. Every time a question is answered from season 1 or from earlier in the season, 10 more questions get raised. So yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Glad you guys joined me in this conversation. All right, see you folks.